Wilds of Eldraine is here. We have the set revealed, and just coming off of Commander Masters, I think there's a lot of excitement around Pauper, especially with those downshifts. And I think what you'll see out of Wilds of Eldraine is it's definitely a mechanic-driven set that's going to affect Pauper. If it's not the individual cards, some of the mechanics are going to spread out and provide a lot of value for artifacts and enchantments, which might not be as exciting to many of you, but hey, artifacts and enchantments are all over the format, so let's hop right into it, into a list that isn't exactly in any particular order. I'm going to start off with a number for a fourth card, and just addressing something like Troublemaker Ouphe really early, where a lot of people are excited about this just because, you know, again, the bargain mechanic, which we may go more in depth into later, but exiling artifacts or enchantments, and exiling is at an all-time high, with our tap lands being indestructible in the artifact section of things. It is a real premium to be able to exile things, and especially with the uptick of enchantments with all that glitters, having that duality is very important. What I want to address off the rip, though, because it's green, is I don't think this goes into Ponza. I think Ponza values in enchantments really early. It doesn't really create a lot of tokens, so you're sacrificing things like Utopia Sprawl. Now, that could be good late, but let's be honest, when it comes to dealing with artifacts and enchantments, Deglamor really just does it best. Sometimes you don't want to destroy things or put things away into graveyards, you can't, or just exiling it. I think filling up their graveyard or filling up their deck and making them redraw these things is much more valuable, especially if you're putting lands back into their deck. They're going to draw through a lot of things. If you're blanking some of their draws, that's what's honestly going to be better than exiling things. Now, where I think this is going to go is something like mono green Stompy with Nest Invader. You have creatures that create tokens that you can bargain away to then exile artifacts or enchantments. But the card that this is going to really compete with, and I think Ouphe is great because it's a 2/2 creature, but I think it's going to compete with Gleeful Sabotage and potentially lose out, because Gleeful Sabotage allows you to destroy 2 artifacts and enchantments, but the destroy part is key, not exile. So you're not destroying lands, but you're going to be destroying creatures out of the artifact decks and enchantments off the enchantment decks. Now, you do run into the niche scenarios where this could help against Rancor, but I think ultimately just being a 2/2 body could help. Bargain could be a thing as well. Does it bleed out Gleeful Sabotage? I'm not sure. Let's hop into number 3. The third most, I think, exciting card for the Pauper format is going to be Hopeless Nightmare. Now, just being a recursive threat is going to be important, especially with all the bargain entering the format itself. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life. When Hopeless Nightmare is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, scry 2. So if you bargain it away or use its last activated ability, you're going to scry 2, which is great on the way out. Where I'm thinking of its use is in some type of black-white core Skyfisher deck as a way to kind of work with board states where you're not really attacking in. Maybe you're stalled out, but this can come in and do a little bit of flickering to get that last bit of life through, and then provide some value scrying through to find maybe the removal piece you need, the pestilence, whatever you need to clear the board. You can use that scry to go through. So I think Hopeless Nightmare has a spot, potentially a 1 of, maybe a 2 of. It's not exactly a staple, but effects like these are really important to consider when core Skyfisher is so big in the format. And again, I think Bargain is going to make an impact. So just having that leave the battlefield effect is also important if Bargain becomes more effective in these black-based, black-white mid-range strategies. Hopping into number 2, I think this is where we start getting into kind of mechanic specific things, but although the cards are important regardless, I'm going to talk about Rowan's Grim Search. Now, it's a very similar templating to something we've seen already in Pauper. 1 black and 2, you draw 2 cards and lose 2 life, but in this case you have Bargain. And again, sacrificing artifact, enchantment, token is really important. There's a lot of tokens that act as fodder. There's a lot of artifacts that draw you cards when they get put in the graveyard. But this specifically, if it was bargained, you look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 2 of them or put up to 2 of them back on top of your library, and in any order, and put the rest into your graveyard. Now, the text is actually really interesting, and we're going to touch on that in a second, but let's talk about the bargain part of it. The text is actually really key if you read it right. Now, we have obviously a comparison to Reckoner's Bargain. Now, this says artifact or creature. You don't want to be sacrificing tokens to this because you gain life equal to the sacrifice permanent's mana value. You draw 2 cards. This is cheaper. It's at instant speed. It's a great card against burn. You're sacrificing things like Burn Forcers when you have like not great optimal blocks, and you just want to gain a bunch of life, draw 2 cards, it's great that way. But Rowan's Grim Search is nice because being black, you're obviously going to be able to sacrifice things like Ichor Wellspring to draw cards on the way out. And then if you're putting creature cards into your graveyard off the ability, then you're also going to be able to potentially get it back with Blood Fountain. But what I want to note to everyone is that it says up to 2 cards. That means for graveyard based strategies, this could actually be a really funny way to just get 4 cards off the top of your library into the graveyard. You don't have to put 2, it's up to 2. You could put 1, you could put 2, you could put 0. You could put all 4 cards into the graveyard. So I think that part of it is actually kind of interesting if you have some graveyard synergies. And then otherwise, it's actually looking through a lot of your deck. And then if you're bargaining, you might be bargaining something that draws you a card. So you're potentially looking through the top like 5 to 7 cards of your deck a lot of the time if you go crazy with it. I think being instant speed is really powerful as well. And I think Rowan's Grim Search is going to do something in the format. You're going to see it in some base decks that have some graveyard elements to it, have some random artifacts to sack. I think we're going to see some level of play from the Grim Search itself. Now at number 1, this is another mechanic based thing that we're going to be looking at. I apologize for my phone notifications, folks, but I think at number 1, we're going to see something like Curse of the Werefox. Now, this is specifically, again, because of the mechanic of roll tokens. So enchanting a creature, putting an enchantment on a creature is going to be important because that's an enchantment, that's an aura put onto a creature. And now that's going to add to our counts of enchantments or artifacts on the battlefield. That's going to matter for a deck like Bogle's, of course, an enchantment matters decks, and the recently downshifted All That Glitters. This is going to be great, just adding +1/+1. And I think one of the things to highlight is specifically this card. Curse of the Werefox provides the enchanted creature with +1/+1 and trample. Now, if you look at All That Glitters, it doesn't actually provide a combat trick. If you have the big green enchantment in Bogle's that provides +2/+2 for each enchantment on the battlefield, that works in the mirror, so you kind of have that, it becomes big. And then if you have the 1 mana white one, that provides first strike. So there's a lot of combat stuff going on, but All That Glitters just works with artifacts. But the trample is actually really key, working to kind of work with that as well. And I think Curse of the Werefox is cool because it is a fight spell at the end of the day. Now, the fight mechanic, I will acknowledge the fact that ram through is better if you want to fight things because it deals damage equal to its power to a creature. You don't actually fight, so the creature that you're dealing damage to doesn't actually deal damage to you back, or the creature back. And then the trample bit is kind of nice because if the creature you control does have trample, then you're going to be able to kind of go over the top. So maybe it gets played alongside of this. Maybe you already have a Rancor and then you play the Were, and then maybe you can get through that way. But I think it's interesting just because it provides an enchantment. It is a fight effect, and it works alongside some cards that have already recently been printed. Regardless, though, those are the cards that I have on my top list of Pauper commons coming out of Wilds of Eldraine that I think will make an impact on the format. Let me know what you think about maybe some of the cards that you're thinking of. Is there anything that I missed? Is there any key synergy or combo that I'm missing out on? Let me know in the comment section down below. Otherwise, happy spell slinging.